Is that, Michelle?
Oh,
Can we, is Michelle on?
And now?
I see
She
Michelle.
doesn't get off work.
No, she's just gonna call in. Yeah.
If she is,
Hey, Chief.
She told me she was gonna call
but
in.
if that number's her, we need her to mute herself, because it sounds like somebody's at work.
She is at work calling in.
And she needs to mute herself.
Well, we just need to tell her.
Yeah.
I assumed she knew.
All
Are we
right.
ready, people? Sure. Everybody ready?
Eddie.
She's from around the world.
Okay.
You didn't realize it was gonna be on camera.
I think I should. I mean, not that I don't.
No.
You're, stay here.
I'd like to call the joint meeting between the Board of Supervisors and the School Board of March 11, 2025, 3:30 p.m. to order. Do you all need to call the board? Oh, excuse me.
I call the school board meeting, a joint meeting with the supervisors to order.
Can we, I want to verify who was on.
Yeah, let's
Make
verify
sure.
who's on the remote Zoom meeting. I see Mr. Spoonhour.
I'm Tom Winthrop.
Yep, okay, there you go.
I'm not sure if you guys can hear me.
Yes,
Who's that?
Oh, Michelle Maxwell.
all right. And
Is that supposed to be the FOIA acknowledgement of electronic participation? Because that usually involves a location and the reason that it's allowed to. It applies to every meeting, whether it's a work session or just want to let you know that that's what FOIA
Okay.
requires.
So
I can hear you, you can hear me, that little back and forth.
we can hear you, you all, the two of you, and you can hear us. And the reason for your doing this remotely is you're unable to be here because of your location.
I'm at work.
Yeah, all right. So thank you very much for your participation, even though it's remotely. Now,
you.
first order of business
Thank
is
you.
the presentation of the school.
So, Mr. Chairman, we can do this in one of two ways. I can recap last week's presentation, or I have it to refer to aid the conversation between the boards. I'm really fine either way.
I'm fine. Does anyone have any objection to just referring to last week's presentation at our board meeting?
I'd prefer it that way.
Yeah,
Okay.
good, thank you.
Well, if, Madam Clerk, if we could get it up on the screen.
Mr. Christie, you would prefer that we go through it or not go through it?
Oh, reference.
Reference, yeah. I was going to have it up for reference in case you had specific questions. I think that if I recall correctly, the board had requested that we add dollar amounts to some of the unfunded Tier 1, Tier 2 initiatives. So we've done that. That might be the best place to start. I think everybody has this in print.
It's up on the screen
We
now.
already have it loaded and ready.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, good sir.
Dr. Kamari, we've been having problems with these Teams meetings that we remotely we can't see as they move forward. So if you just reference what slide number?
Yes, sir.
Let's just go with the deck. That'd be
Yes, sir.
great.
I'm
Thank you.
gonna be going to slide 25 initially. Apologize, it's gonna take me a minute to drive through these.
Right to the point.
Yeah, right to the point. So So last week, we were asked by a couple supervisors to provide the Tier 1 and Tier 2 unfunded needs with dollar amounts. I'll preface these dollar amounts again by saying, for the benefit of our public, that these numbers are not reflected in the current school board budget. These are needs that if we had additional dollars, these are directions in which we'd like to go. So the interventionist, I'll start, and I can't get this thing to move for the public. But those of us in attendance, we'll start on slide 25. The $282,435 represents salaries and benefits. I think we'd be remiss to divide that number by 3 and think that that's what we're paying individual folks to be interventionists for us. That's not the case. That takes into account employer contributions for health insurance, among other things, VRS retirement, and salaries for 3 individuals. We talked about the need for an additional full FTE to support students who speak English as a second language. That full FTE would parallel any other full teaching FTE, salary and benefits, $94,145. And the way we come up with that number is we basically norm it, I believe, step 10, Stephanie. We identified at step 10, recognizing that if we hired someone who was less seasoned than step 10, someone coming in at 0 to 9, it would cost less. Conversely, if we found someone who was coming in at 11 to infinity, it could cost more. Thank you, sir. So those were the Tier 1 unfunded needs. And our board may have different ideas on these tiers. I mentioned that last week. I'm sharing them as we've had them prioritized over the weeks as we've been developing the budget. A work-based learning coordinator. This was a position that had initially been negotiated as a split position between the Office of Workforce Development and the public schools. I believe that the Office of Workforce Development had budgeted to cover about 33% or a third of this position. And the school division, if resources were available to do so, had planned to cover the other 2/3. Due to budget issues on the workforce development side, they recanted the 0.3 contribution. And even if they hadn't, it would have put us in peril to maintain the 0.67 anyway. So it didn't make the budget, but I do identify it as an unfunded need. Salary and benefits for that person would be $121,231. We talked about percentage-based stipends for our middle school coaches, just to bring equity in how we compensate coaches. To refresh everyone's memory, the high school coaches earn a percentage of their base salary as their stipend or supplement for coaching. In the middle schools, it is a flat stipend. So, for example, I could be a 27-year teacher at the middle school level. My stipend for coaching my particular sport is only going to be what the declared stipend is. If it's $2,700, that's it. But I could be a
Dr. Cromartie, if we could, we need to acknowledge that Charlie Waters has joined the meeting remotely.
Yes, Mr. Waters, can you hear us?
Sorry I'm late. I can, thank you. Sorry I'm late.
And your location?
What?
Your reason for not being here is
It's working.
you're working?
I'm working, yes.
Yes,
I
okay.
was doing the South Side Speedway press conference, yes.
I understand. Okay, thank you. We're glad to hear you.
For benefits of being clear, I'll start over with the percentage-based stipends. No, don't worry about that. That happens. It's to be expected. So the high school coaches earn a percentage of their base salary. That's their stipend. So there could be variance in that depending on where they are on the salary scale. It also has the ability to grow over time. As their salary grows, so does that percentage stipend for coaching. In the middle schools, they get a flat stipend. Whatever it is, whatever we've declared it or set it as, that's what it is from now until infinity, until we change the stipends. What we'd hope to be able to do is to bring some internal equity in how we compensate our middle school coaches and our high school coaches, and it would cost us about $32,000 to do that. I would argue today that the time commitment is roughly the same. Some may hold the opinion that the middle school coaches may not be working as long, but the seasons are pretty consistent. And the time you take to spend developing kids and skills in athletics is the time that it takes. It will cost us $32,000 to bring some equity there. Our robotics programs have grown tremendously, so much to the point where we could use an assistant robotics coach at the high school. That stipend would be estimated to be a little under $2,000. And then we've had lots of conversations about building our agriculture program and extending that to the middle school. That would require an FTE of $94,145, the same amount for the ESL teacher. And then we had some unfunded needs that, because they're tier 3, we took caution not to give dollar amounts for, but they may add flavor to our conversation today. A library assistant at the middle school, an additional ITRT, which would give us 5 total for the division. That would place 1 at each school. There's been requests for additional band FTEs, an additional half. That would give us 1 for the middle and 1 for the high school. 2 additional bus drivers. And we probably don't need to get into the email security services again. That's a holdover from last week. But it's my understanding that the county has a solution for that the school division can benefit from as well. So that's kind of where we left it last week with regard to questions around additional unfunded needs.
So just for clarity,
Yes, sir.
if we had limited funds, you would want us to go with tier 1? What's your priority?
That would be my priority,
Makes
but I
sense.
would leave that ultimate discretion to
We
the
can
school.
talk about it, and then right on down the line, as funds are available or made available.
As Dr. Cromartie said, those are his priorities, not necessarily the school board's.
Okay.
Now, you ask, why did we approve it? Because we needed to get it approved so that contracts can go out to the teachers. So there was pressure to do that. But it definitely not exactly the air priorities, or
So
mine
at
anyway.
this time, would it be appropriate to, would it be worthy to discuss these? And maybe if we need to reestablish priorities, or at least hear from everyone regarding their
Okay, well,
feelings?
can I ask, is there going to be money for it, or is it just a lesson
You're
in
wasting our time?
futility?
No,
Yeah.
I don't think so. From what
So
go ahead, Mr.
if you
Alvarez.
recall, when Mr. Carpenter presented the budget on February 18th, he didn't present a balanced budget. There was a little bit of money left over. And Ms. Cave and I have been going through the figures. We know the fire chief needs some additional resources, and we've been looking at some of the requests from the board. We are going to have a little bit of money left. So we do need a priority, because we can cover all
This
of
is
these.
almost $1 million, isn't it?
We can cover all of these. We might be able to cover the first slide or the second slide, but we cannot cover them all with what we have.
But it also prepares us for next year's budget. For whatever we can't fund, we can potentially fund next year, I would say.
So, Mr. Christie, on that point, we still have a $270,000 holdover from last year's budget where we worked out a mutually beneficial arrangement for making a market adjustment in teacher compensation. And that required the school division to absorb $270,000 in our technology area that the supervisors had made a commitment to make us whole this year. So I'm a little nervous about continued deferral of things because it kind of snowballs on us.
Right.
So I'll just remind everyone of that $270,000 that's kind of lingering from last year.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if we want to go back into ancient history, 2 years ago, with the cost overruns on the new elementary school, I believe there were commitments that these carryover funds were going to be put towards those cost overruns on school construction. I don't want to put Mr. Spoonhour on the spot, but he was on the board at that time, I was not. And I just want to make sure we're not forgetting, promises made, promises kept, that if carryover money is available, that's being directed where it was committed to being directed to plus years ago.
If I might speak to that point, we had, I believe, $673,000 that I had requested as turnback reappropriation from the county.
Yes, sir.
Coming in not knowing of that arrangement, I was made aware of that arrangement, and then I withdrew that request to have that $678,000 reappropriated to the school division. I took great caution to make the point that had we had those dollars reappropriated, we could have self-funded the market adjustment last year.
Okay, again, I want to make sure my recall is enhanced by those who were in the room and had those discussions, because my wife will advise I have an opportunity to misremember things to my convenience. That's not my intent here. I also, Mr. Chairman, if I might, I know I spoke with Chair Moses about, we don't call them weapon detectors, we call them metal detectors.
No, they're weapon detectors.
They are weapons, okay.
And they also do vapes.
Okay, and I don't see that on the list, and I start my budgeting with safety, public safety.
Thank you.
Well, I do.
I appreciate that.
That's just how I'm wired. Is that something that should be on this?
That is something that I would put number one,
Okay.
personally.
So, understanding and acknowledge, we had previously discussed putting it in the capital improvement plan, I believe, for 2027. If priorities have changed, that's fine. It's not a neglect for it, it's that that's where we had previously discussed and agreed to place it.
All right.
And we could take a look at maybe we should, whether to accelerate that as part of the capital improvement.
Yes, sir. That was our hope.
I wanted to, well, maybe it's not the appropriate time. Go ahead.
Oh. If it goes into the CIP, if the weapons detectors go into the CIP, when would we get them?
Well, I mean.
It wouldn't be this September,
No,
August.
probably not, yeah.
I would argue we're not gonna be ready by this September, simply because of making sure we advise our community, partner with their sheriff's office, get training for our staff. Like, I think there's a lot of work to go in, so I would argue we're not gonna be ready for the beginning of this school year. I would like to see us in a position to be ready by the beginning of the following school year, which from a budgetary point of view, Ms. Moses, would still mean that we would need to fund it in the upcoming fiscal so that we can acquire that hardware.
And to answer your question as far as accelerating the CIP, that is going to be part of our budget process as we evaluate this. Because what I was getting ready to say is, you know, we've got a little bit of funding between what's available to us and where the presented budget as it has been presented. And so, but one of the considerations I personally need to take into consideration, feel we need to take into consideration is we've got somewhat of an unfunded CIP, capital improvement plan. And so at some point, we really need to start paying attention to how we're gonna fund that. So, you know, whether we take some of this money that's surplus now and allocate it to that as well, that's a discussion that we're gonna be having, I think. Don't you agree, Mr. Alvarez? So we can't just keep kicking that can down the road, because there's some very important things in there, such as what we just talked about. So, anyway, we need to look at that. But it's good to know that it's a priority for you all, and so we'll pay attention.
Well, no, I'm speaking for myself, and I mean, we certainly can't take a vote here, but,
The rest of us have not been privy to any of this, only to know that it is a want and probably a need. But we haven't seen any, companies that, sell this. We haven't compared any prices. We're just kind of bottom line here. Now, I'm not saying that I disagree with Ms. Moses that we don't need to take a look at this, but we have a big drawing board right now to move forward.
Well, I would say if that's something should be added to the drawing board, and we, as far as the cost of it, I know I've had a brief encounter with you on this technology. It's amazing stuff that's out there. There's technology that'll identify a weapon when it comes in the parking lot, and
Well,
so
and
forth.
we had the privilege, and several of you were with us to tour the system in place with Louisa County Public Schools. Their superintendent took us through and showed us their operation, and we learned quite a bit about that as an option as well. So I think to
So
Ms.
we-
Robinson's point, we're still in what I would call the
Yeah,
discovery
we know,
phase.
we know there's some good technology out there, some good programs that'll make us feel comfortable.
I'd like some good
Security-
grants.
Security is very important for our children and all of our staff and everything.
Mr. Winfrey,
Yes.
we actually had the AI camera folks that were on tap to present at the February school board meeting. We got delayed due to weather
Oh,
and
okay.
haven't rescheduled them. So they were gonna make that presentation that night.
But it's pretty,
Point of
pretty
information,
impressive.
is an AI,
It's AI technology that we could outfit on our current surveillance equipment.
okay.
So it would come at a little bit of a cheaper cost.
So this isn't the drone? that
No,
was there, classroom.
no drones
It's
were
not
involved
this-
with
okay,
this.
Thank you.
Is that complementary to the metal detector system, or is that kind of a?
We were looking at it in lieu of,
Okay,
just as an option to present the board so that
Could
they
be
could make a
step above
decision.
that.
gotcha.
Yeah, I would like to wait till we have that information, like that presentation that they weren't able to. And then I do have some articles that I've researched that show the effectiveness and the data behind the metal detectors and whether they're effective and what makes them more effective. So something that you guys could take a look at too, when you're considering.
And I believe our sheriff department's going through, Eddie, you may know, some enhanced detection equipment, cameras and so forth. You're aware of what they're doing?
I believe so, but I don't know the specifics of that.
So that would be part of the whole overall study, to interface with whatever we're doing.
I can tell you that Sheriff, I talked to Sheriff Breesy about this, and he's all for the ones that we saw at Louisa. I mean, he specifically said Louisa, not anything else.
But he hasn't seen
So-
this other yet, has he?
Mr. Chairman, do we have a ballpark figure?
Louisa,
Planning?
with their 5 schools, and they had a lot of more than I think we would need, were 500,000 for theirs.
And not only is there the upfront investment in the technology, there's ongoing stipends because you need to train staff and then have them positioned at each of those points to bring the children through. It was very well run at Louisa, but I don't want us to negate the fact that there's a hardware, software, initial implementation cost, and then there's ongoing overhead costs from a personnel point of view.
Like TSA.
Well, I think we've answered that question.
I'm not saying we don't do it, I'm just bringing forth the data.
But we're moving it up as far as paying attention to it and considering it's part of the CIP and so forth.
So, if we're gonna push that to the CIP, is this prioritization back to being the right thing to do?
I defer to the school board.
If not, what else is there? Because we are gonna be working on the budget, and we do have, I believe in the CIP, we already have the chiller for the high school and middle school. It's in our CIP. I'm not sure everything else that's in there now, but,
We're hoping that the current year CIP includes the $2 million for architectural and engineering for the career and technical education and arts addendum at the high school. That was part of the 2021 referendum.
I will check.
Yeah. Just, Mr. Chairman, some of that $2 million went to cost overrun. I mean, there's just, we had specified amounts for the school in the bond, what we were projecting we were going to use. And I believe we bumped up 100% to that, but 15 million bucks is a lot of money that we were not anticipating when we presented that bond to the citizens. And so when they approved it, we were doing a courthouse, a fire station, and schools. And so at some point, there will be any more money that had been approved by the citizens. And the judge is not going to let us not do a courthouse.
Yeah, and we are concerned that whether or not we have enough money to do the courthouse.
That actually was gonna be my question, is how the supervisors will handle building a new sheriff's office with a $27 million budget. I mean, there will certainly be cost overruns, so I'm curious as to how you're handling building the 3 projects.
We're working on
that-
that, it's going through the process now, we don't have any real
It's a fair question.
substantial estimates.
Mr. Spoonhour, I think.
Mr. Spoonhour?
Mr. Spoonhour's online.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, 'cause I've been sort of involved in those. Ms. Allen, what we did was we said, we went to our architects and says, we have $26 million, build a support house for $26 million. Now, that's the approach we've taken so far. Whether that winds up working or not is yet to be seen, but that's sort of the approach we took. We said, this is how much we have, what can you build us for this? And again, we're in the very early stages of that, but that, just to answer your question, that's sort of how we've been trying to approach it.
So I appreciate that, Mr. Spoonhour. I think one of the things that may help the schools, particularly with the CTE building, is can we get a firm number as to what resources remain from the $60 million allocated to the schools from the referendum, so that we can go to an architect and go, hey, build us a CTE building for X?
Mr. Chairman, I think math would
Yeah,
say.
I kind of feel like
Mr. Spoonhour.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna comment that I kind of feel like we should be able to have that pretty readily available.
It's about 17 million.
That was the number I thought so as well. Okay,
That was the number I had in head.
great, that's the number I had as
The
well.
number, so
Yeah, it's about 17 million.
Thank
Still
you.
to,
So again, we'd
But
be,
those are bonds that have not yet been issued.
No, yeah. It just gives us a budget number to have conversations with architects and engineers. Thank you.
so that brings me back to it initially would be about $2 million to engage A&E for a project of this scope. And I'm assuming the physical facility that we get would accumulate the cost of the balance, $15 million, which,
And we've talked about this would be added to the high school, not as part of the abandoned elementary school.
Abandoned's a strong word. I was pressured by the supervisors to turn that building back over.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say that abandoned, but
Uninhabited.
you know what I mean.
Not used.
I think that is also part of the architect
So
and
that's part of
engineering
the
process.
studying. Okay.
But in our conversations, and I don't want to dominate the discussion here, but in our conversations, we believe there's merit to keeping our campus whole versus pushing kids to
Sure.
satellite facilities.
And I think my sense is that we support CTE.
Absolutely,
No question
100%,
about it.
yes. And we see and feel that, so thank you.
Agriculture's
I understand.
Do we have any other discussion on the priority unfunded tier 1, tier 2, tier 3?
Mr. Chairman, I have been invited to the schools once, I've been invited back, but that may tell us something, to read. And I was actually listening to the radio coming here, and I believe I'm going to pronounce his name, Larry Arnon, I believe, who was the president of Hillsdale College, was being interviewed. And he was talking about reading comprehension and how the big part of reading comprehension is the reading. I mean, people sitting with a child and reading with them. I got exposed to dogs, which are dads on grounds, maybe, I'm not sure what. Yeah, but parental involvement. Have we explored reading buddies of any sort where parents or volunteers would participate with kids and in this sense become volunteer interventionists?
Budget.
Sir?
Yeah. Let's get them off.
Well,
it's talking about $282,000.
So I want to be careful because I'm not the educator in the room, but I think, we'll just use an example. Let's say all of you know how to change an engine in a car, and I now want to learn how to change the engine in the car. If I get instruction from each of you, at the end of it, I will not know how to change the engine in a car. So consistency in your pedagogical approaches is really important for the benefit of children. And so I'm not dismissing the idea because I still think there's merit to bringing members of our community to reading to, I love going to read to the children as well, But from an instructional point of view, we want to make sure that they're trained, and I'll look to you and you, on appropriate techniques, and because those are the things that really can make a difference in a child's progress.
Yes, I would like, I think there's other things that I would like moved up to tier 1. Reading interventionist at this time for me is not a highest priority. Are they good? As a teacher, I have used, we have reading interventionist. It is a disruption sometimes to the classroom and the flow because kids are getting pulled out, people are coming in, there's a lot going on with that, and there is research that states how much time it takes to get kids back on task when there are interruptions. And in today's classroom, there are lots of interruptions into the classroom. I would say the reason my thoughts are to move this to a different tier is because all of our data on how our kids are performing in Goochland, we're top in the region. So to me, it's like, why would we advocate for spending money if there is not a need right now with our students performing really well? Now, we have a new curriculum, that open court, that we'll see testing data come in the spring. I believe it's in May. And then we can look at that, and that might be something I know that Mr. Christie said that we might put off till next year. This would be one that I think, let's wait. We said we're gonna give our new curriculum a year to see how it goes and get it implemented, and then maybe look at this again. I do think that at the community talk that we held as a school division, we had a community talk out at Dogtown Road, and it was mentioned there, engaging the community to come in and read with students. I think it's really a great idea. And the reason why I think it's a great idea is because we're trying to reach children that may not have that support, someone reading with them at home. And reading with someone that's not a facilitator is actually getting to read for enjoyment, reading what students are interested in. And that fosters a love for reading. So I like the idea of engaging the different, every point. We have people that may be willing to invest time in our schools, but not to say that interventions aren't important. I just think that's something we need to look at a little bit later.
And
Mr. Lyon, I apologize for cutting you off. Go ahead.
No,
Please.
not at all.
Please.
I need adult supervision.
No,
Chair.
no, please.
This is more of a STEM, is it not, interventionist, as opposed to reading? It is reading interventionist?
These would be interventionists at each of the 3 schools. They could help in a number of ways, but we propose them to help us with numeracy, mathematics proficiency, not reading proficiency.
Okay, so it is mathematics.
For several weeks running.
This STEM could benefit
It
from.
also could be reading too, if needed.
I think it was first proposed to us for.
No, the way that it's been proposed over time is that we, with the VLA identifying more kids needing targeted assistance, all hands on deck are being added to address the needs of that volume increase. I also shared that we're going to be adding 4th and 5th grade to the mix next year.
Yes.
It's K through 3 now, so it stands to reason that there are going to be even a greater number of kids needing targeted assistance. These positions were originally proposed and stand today to fill in gaps that we may lose ground on in mathematics due to an overemphasis or an adequate emphasis on reading.
Okay. But reading could not be included at all in the.
I'm not going to say that it couldn't be. We use our resources as the
Right.
need. We follow the
Right,
needs,
right.
but they were proposed to help ensure that we don't lose ground in mathematics while we continue to offer targeted assistance to greater number of students in reading.
Okay.
So we're doing well in both areas, but this is you're saying to hold our ground.
No,
Yes.
we have 18% of our students who are not meeting proficiency in literacy, and 17% of our students who are not meeting proficiency in mathematics. To me, that's doing okay. That's not doing well. It'd be doing well if we had 100 students doing well in English and 100% of students doing well in mathematics.
Yeah, 100% is always the nice number to.
That's the goal.
That's
think
always
it's a
the goal, but
reality,
it's not a
though.
reality.
Well, to that I'd say, whose kids?
Yeah. Well,
Whose kids should account for the 17%?
And about the
Well, there's some
volunteerism.
ownership, I'm sorry.
Mm.
There's some family ownership of that.
I totally agree, but as far as volunteerism, I know Rotary reads, and, I'm in.
We need to do
women's-
more of it,
Yeah,
because we enjoy it.
it's just doing it and getting there in such a short block of time, and I appreciate that. But I will also say that for, probably the last 15 years, our Greater Women's Club has gone in weekly and sometimes bi-weekly to a school that calls and says, we really need a child, a new child, or a child who is not as proficient as we like, would you come and read? And to me, in being a reading specialist for so many years, anytime a child can hear the written word, whether you read it, I read it, they read it, we take turns, it's a win-win. It's a win-win, you know.
You know, I think you maybe bring up a good point. Maybe we need to increase our efforts on getting outside of the community to come in and read.
I do think Avery.
And the awareness
Point
of
was a
that and the
perfect
benefit.
example.
Dare I say it, but I'm guilty of it too. The tablets and the kids. But I mean, could a really inexpensive solution to all this would be to just start a YouTube channel for personal reading, and that could be broadcast to all the kids on their tablets.
Read a book, you mean read a book online?
Right, have an adult read a book online.
That you have.
Well, I want to say our librarian at the high school, she did something with a club. I was looking at some of their books that they've been reading. She has high schoolers reading books online. But I think that the value of having someone sit and read with you and engage with you is having a connection that then fosters that interest and love for reading versus you kind of tune out something that's on a
Right.
digital device.
It's fair point.
Technology can only do so much.
I agree, absolutely.
But it can screw up better. Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chair.
Sir, yes,
Mr. Spooner.
spoon out.
Thank you. I just wanted to kind of bring us up a level. You know, we find ourselves in a unique position. This is probably my 6th budget, and I think this is probably Mr. Alvarez's like 12th or 13th, if not more. But again, this is unique in that we've been presented a budget that isn't a balanced budget. That's the first time this has ever happened. So I think it would be helpful if we could have a quick discussion on what is the expectation of both boards and our administrator and superintendent, because, you know, there's the approach of, hey, we say, you know, board of supervisors, we're going to give you the money to fund this, this, and this. Or do we say here, or is the approach, hey, here's how much money we think we could carve out to give the schools and everybody else that has been trying, that has needs as well. So maybe Mr. Alvarez, as you're going to have to present the final budget, you know, what is the most helpful to you to help us get to decisions on all these needs that are they're all needs, they're not wants, they're needs, and how we can effectively get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spoonhour. Yeah, I've been through a few of these. I think the approach we always took was, we would look at the expected revenues, and we would propose an amount to the school board. I think we did that this year, but we did more of a kind of keep it flat approach with 3% increase for employees. And then we ask, what else do you need? What are your other needs? And let's see if we can make it happen. We did the same thing to the county. We said we're gonna stay flat. So we have, as you know, Mr. Carpenter left some money on the table, and he said, you guys figure it out when I'm gone, which is kind of appreciated to a point. But now we have to balance the needs of the county and the schools. And we've gone through, there were a lot of things that the county departments needed that were not considered in his proposal. And so we've had very little time, Carla and I, to kind of sit through the numbers. We've got some ideas, but we're not there yet. But my approach with the board, is at the next 2x2, present the options. And that will include the school options as well as the county options. And today is really more about hearing what the schools need, because they won't be in our 2x2 sessions. And then we can take that into consideration. You guys can take that into consideration.
Good. I think just the knowledge that I have, I think the request from the school board, fire and rescue, sheriffs, the county administrative, is probably at least twice as much as we have available. If I'm doing the math.
Yeah.
I'm doing the math. So you can see the task at hand for us to consider everyone. So.
Just
I'm
to
not making
reiterate,
excuses, I'm just
if we-
saying, that's what we gotta do. Yes,
Mr. Borders?
Mr. Voters?
Yeah, assuming at the 2x2, we're able to parse through the specific numbers associated with these 3 tiers of needs, we can then, we're going to make our allocation, but the school board and the school administrations are going to be, hashing out their final prioritization. And once we've made our allocations, that final use of those funds is up to you all, correct? I mean, we're certainly going to have an idea of where we want those funds to go, but that does fall on the additional work of the school board.
Very good
correct?
point. Very good point. Yeah, we're not here to make
We're not,
decisions.
so I'm not passing the buck, but we're going to make that allocation. But, we understand that there is still going to be prioritization that is going to take place, and without us in the room as well. So, I think this meeting is great for us to have an understanding of each of these line items and or each of these bullet points and go from there. Are there any slides beyond this developing needs one? I want to make sure we get your verbiage associated with all these.
Can we go back to the previous slides, because he hasn't seen the ones we're talking about. So this is where we started, Mr. Waters.
Yes, okay.
I believe you were on then, were you not?
No, I don't think so.
I didn't get on until the second slide, but
Okay.
yes, now I'm seeing it. Okay, that's fine. I mean, that's good. And
So we asked about the prioritization, and the school board has some differences of opinion, but to your point, it's something that we take this and we consider how much we can give them, and then they can, because this is more categorical, we're not dictating what they should do with it, but,
Just keep in mind that the capital improvement plan is important for us
Yeah.
too.
And
And you all benefit from
Absolutely.
that,
I just want to call out that each time we add personnel, that's a ongoing.
right.
Yeah,
Okay,
we're
so,
looking at that.
yes,
Carla knows I ask about that all the time.
okay,
Can we afford this in the future?
right.
So I had some questions earlier that I think Carla got an answer to about school buses. So you had some school buses in this year's budget, is that correct?
We have 2 in our operating budget.
In your operating budget, have they been ordered or?
We just paid for them, didn't we?
Oh, you mean in fiscal year 25?
Yeah,
Because they were paid with proffers, they were ordered early
Okay.
in the year, and they have been paid for, and then one has been paid for out of the CIP.
and you have 2 more in this year's budget.
Fiscal year 26 has 2 in the operating budget. We took one out because we were short that $270,000.
And you're requesting, if we can, to add another.
We had said that might be something we could fund with end-of-year money, but if we were to get some more money from the county, that would be prioritized with some of these other things as well.
Way back down on the list.
And as we think about CIP, because Mr. Winfrey, I agree with you, we have, the last time I looked at the 25-year spreadsheet, we're like $500 million behind, right? Like, it's a big, big number. we're about a dozen school buses behind because we deferred our replacement schedule in favor of other priorities. So I know when you hear we've ordered 2 and there's, that it sounds like, oh, everything's great, but we still are trying to play a catch-up game with those resources as well.
That's the point I'm trying to make. Exactly.
Well,
Yeah,
is that?
digging a hole and keep digging it deeper. The thing to do is stop digging.
But are we not just continually Band-Aiding everything?
No,
Pipes, you don't think we are?
we just built a new school.
That is the first school that's been built in this county in more than 20 years, and the first elementary school in more than 57.
Well, aware of that.
So it was long past time to build an elementary school for this county.
But we are not constantly Band-Aiding, I don't believe.
I don't view it that way either, because we're funding the schools. I mean,
The CIP is where we have pain, because we
Yeah.
got 2 more elementary schools that are pretty quick turn, and I worry about the fiscal impact of those investments. We've taken some of the pressure off of the student population at Byrd and Randolph, but the infrastructure is still quickly aging out.
I mean,
Can I go back to the school bus comment from
what
Ms.
you're
Allen?
saying.
Yes,
Mr. Spoonhour,
Spoonhour,
I'm sorry, here, go ahead.
you go ahead.
you go ahead.
So, Ms. Allen, if I heard you correctly, you said that we've fallen behind on the bus schedule. I'd like to see that, because I feel like, yes, I think it was last year or the year before, we didn't think we were gonna get buses, and then we wound up getting 2 in the budget, which I thought kept us on schedule, on top of the 3 electric buses that we are supposed to be getting or got.
we got. Yeah, so Ms. Weiss can keep me straight. We do have a schedule. The state says that a bus of a certain age and mileage should be replaced. The problem is the state doesn't fund that, which we all understand. The last time we looked at it, and Ms. Weiss, keep me honest, I believe we were a dozen buses behind our expected replacement schedule based on the age of the fleet.
I'd have to pull up.
Sure.
Oh,
That's-
It's almost we gotta do it.
That's the first time I've ever heard that in 6 years. So that's good information, because it must have been kept from us.
Ms. Allen, is that a recommendation, or is that like a mandate requirement?
Is a mandate a requirement or a recommendation?
Recommendation is not a mandate.
Right,
It is in Virginia code.
okay.
It has been presented with our capital improvement plan at every school board budget meeting in December for the last, I'd say, 5 to 6 years, that schedule of replacement is behind. So it hasn't been kept under wraps. It has been publicly talked about many times.
So what is the life of a bus? Because
It's mileage and or years,
250,000 is what it can go up to 200.
or 15 years. Yep,
so we have 12 buses that are
more than
over
15
15 years old, or
or-
250,000.
How many are both?
That would be a question for Ms. Holman, I don't.
How many are in the fleet?
No, how many are both 250,000 miles and older than 15 years?
Oh.
A double winner, if you will.
Our transportation department does a really great job keeping those buses going.
Obviously, yeah. And
That would be a
a
good
safe
number,
vehicle should not be.
good number to have.
Okay.
Good information.
Yeah, and kind of like fire trucks, the price of acquisition is ever increasing.
I thought fire trucks were going down.
Oh, are they? That's surprising.
Going down for maintenance, sir.
Can I raise a question while we do have everyone around the table, or, or available electronically? There was a point made by the superintendent, about, the goal being 100%. And I did sense that there was some, feeling that, okay, 100% is not a realistic goal. But as it relates to proficiency, I tend to side on the 100% as always being a goal, barring very extreme cases, just because reading to a level of proficiency and mathematics to a level of proficiency in many ways, in my opinion, should be a requirement for advancement. And so I just wanted to, while we do have this audience of both the school board and board of supervisors, I'm curious to get any thoughts to the contrary, if they do exist.
Can't argue with that.
Mr. Waters, I would 100% agree with that statement. The goal should be 100%. It's like going through basic training. They don't want you partially trained when you are graduated. They want you 100% trained, and I would like to think our students would have 100% reading and mathematics ability. So I'm right with you there, Mr. Waters.
I mean, and just to look at this from a dollars and cents standpoint, a child lagging behind in the 2nd through 5th grades is going to be, for lack of a better term, a problem for the remainder of their academic career. Not in any given one year, but we're going to see the negative effects of that lack of proficiency trailing them like a lead weight. So I look at, from a instructor prioritization level, I look at that and put that very high on the list. I'm not on the school board. I understand that y'all are in the weeds much more than I am, but if I look at it from a financial standpoint, I do feel that ongoing burden to our system of somebody where we have not remedied that by the 5th grade, that ongoing burden is significant.
To me, that's why it is crucial that we keep low class sizes. That's all. That's why I taught in Goochland and not in Shortcut. It was just amazing what class sizes were. I came here 15 years ago.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
On the list, the English second language teacher is number 2. And is that a mandated function? The state has said we must do that?
To this point, the position is not an SOQ position. We anticipate that it may be.
And that not...
In this coming fiscal year?
For this coming fiscal year.
And SOQ means?
Standards of quality. So the state, with their funding, they're only going to fund positions that they designate to be positions that meet the threshold of the standards of quality. Now, if we operated or attempted to operate solely on those positions, somebody would probably come and shut us down by the end of the week. It's inadequate. It's inadequate for Goochland. It's inadequate for everybody across the state. That's why everybody operates in excess of standard of those SOQ positions. So to answer your question, is it a mandate today? Right now, no. If it becomes an SOQ position, it's a position that we're going to have to address, and we do well to be prepared for that.
Fire.
I needed the chief to be here when I talked about the fire panel at the high school.
You knew that.
I need him for that.
Mr. Chairman, one other question. The board was well-intentioned, and I'm not trying to rethink a decision we made with the Goochland Education Foundation. But we committed $300,000 over 3 years to help them with an after-school reading comprehension program. And I heard a sidebar comment, gee, I hope that funding of the foundation doesn't impact the school's budget. And I'm not sure if that's where we are today or not, but, well.
Oh, I said that publicly during the meeting.
Well, I haven't finished, Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me.
Yeah. So is there an opportunity that those $100 a week enrollment tuitions could be funded so that those children have need for reading comprehension, because I believe the focus is reading comprehension, could be paid for with monies that would perhaps be less than 282,000, but our highest risk students would be given that reading comprehension attention after school. And I understand it's voluntary, can't be required, not part of the school day, but it would perhaps minimize interruptions in the classroom. And once again, I am the 100% reading comprehension level. So if I don't ask the question here, then I probably won't ask it
So,
later. So it's been
Not,
asked.
not only is it voluntary, it comes at a cost.
Yes,
So
sir.
in order to go, you have to pay, I think the $105 a week has been proposed as a cost.
Yes, sir.
I would argue, quite successfully,
Okay.
that our kids who have the lowest reading proficiency come from the homes that are most economically challenged. Now, I'm no mathematician. That math doesn't math to me.
You're proficient. You're proficient in
I'm
math?
proficient in mathematics. Proficient in mathematics. So what we would in essence be doing under that model is setting up a scenario where we would expect families to enroll their kids in this after-school program, whether they need the after-school care or not, then be able to afford the $420 a month that it costs to be there. When all the data suggests that the kids who are reading off grade level, and again, that 18% that we talked about, also have economic challenges.
My goal was to find a solution. And
I understand, I appreciate that, I just wanted to state that as fact.
The ones that are the most, that show the most need, that have the lowest scores, it's not that we don't have people that are supporting those students already, correct? We're adding positions to be able to reach higher. I think, like for instance, at my school, we have the lowest, we take their scores and we help the ones, and then if some age out or they get it, and then we can replace them with others that are by their scores to meet more. So I just don't want anyone to think that we're not meeting the needs of the students. We have staff that are helping in that area, interventionists and reading specialists. We just would like to add 3 additional ones. So I don't want it to seem like anyone's being missed right now.
18% of students are being missed.
They are cheap.
To
Respectfully.
Mr. Lyle's, oh, sorry, Angela. To Mr. Lyle's comment
Missed
though,
by meeting their needs.
is there any way,
No, they should be meeting, they should be seeing interventionists. Those.
But that's what I'm
students
saying,
are-
if we have 18% of students that are not proficient, then the miss in whatever combination of resources exists, whether that's at home, whether that's with an interventionist, whether that's with supplemental services, whatever it is, we have missed meeting the needs, meeting 18% of students where they are to bring them to proficiency. And guys, I yell it from the mountaintops about how great Goochland County Public Schools are. Just because we're better than the next guy doesn't mean that we're that great. We're doing a fine job. We absolutely could be doing better.
Iterate to grade.
So just be careful who you compare yourself to, right?
So,
Well, Mr. Waters had a comment.
Mr. Waters had a comment.
I just, it's going with what Mr. Lyle was saying though, is there a way, I see your point 100%, Mr. Cromartie, Dr. Cromartie, but we have, yes, after school programming, the way we've had it set up, you're highly unlikely not to get your most underprivileged populations selecting into that. There's a self-selection issue there. However, if we note that a child is not meeting proficiency, can we steer them? I mean, to what extent can we steer them into after school programming? Because when I do look at almost $300,000 versus $400 a month, there are a lot of children we could be meeting at $400 a month that, let's say we get to $150,000 in spending on that. That is after school. That is frankly probably time that our most underprivileged children are not using that time effectively, and not having adult supervision, and try it with that path as opposed to immediately going with the interventionist, because I do think our underprivileged population could be underprivileged and not meeting proficiency population could benefit the most from the after school elements. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Dr. Camardi.
Two thoughts. Thought number one, that's operating under the assumption that we have skilled folks doing the tutoring in an after-school program. Just this afternoon, we've had the thought of maybe having volunteers help fill reading gaps. I'm willing to venture that none of us would want to take a flight with a volunteer pilot or get on an operating table for a volunteer surgeon. This requires skill. That's why people study to do it. If anybody could walk off the street in advanced literacy, I'd argue we'd have far less illiteracy than we currently do. So that's the first point. The second point is, if we mandated or obligated a kid to do the program after school, and the program comes at a cost, and the family can't afford it, then we have to be willing to figure out a way to finance the cost, which brings us right back. And then I think the biggest point.
Well, I said two, and there's a bigger one here. That's why I was very careful to caution us against marrying that arrangement with the Goochland Education Foundation to any conversations that we might have around budget, because I knew that the road would lead here to this impasse.
With teachers, not also, if you have a child that you want in that program, then you're gonna have to have his or her teacher identify what the needs are so that he is being remediated in that specific area or areas that he is not proficient.
That's
so
right.
Right back to the school teacher.
It's right back to the most logical way to touch the most kids.
I think you're bringing up a very good point.
Well, not to put down people volunteering to read with a child, because
No.
research shows kids that have the most success in school is because they've been read to at home by their parents.
You still want
who aren't-
Rotary to come in, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
who
we
aren't
will.
trained educators.
I think I think
So-
they know that was my intention.
No, I'm being facetious, but it was my understanding in this program that we're bringing up here is that we were going to make provisions for people who couldn't afford it.
We are.
Somehow, as part of that program, to allow for scholarships or assistance.
Yes,
We may want to look into that.
The
and that is
Goochland
true,
School-
because
But
I'm
by
on
no
that.
means is it a substitute for professional education.
No, I just want to be really careful. The school board does not oversee GEF.
No, it's totally different.
So I want
Okay.
we don't have any direction of how they spend their money or how they structure their programs. We partner with them, but we do not direct them.
I need some clarification. I've thought that the GEF was teachers teaching at the Y, or through the Y, but teaching at the schools.
Teachers can.
So they are the teachers.
Teachers may apply if they so desire to do so, but they're also opening this up to, she's opening this up to all types of folks to apply. And quite possibly, rightfully so, if she wants to staff it at the level she wants to staff it at. The teachers are welcome to apply. The pay is last
Okay.
proposed $30 an hour.
Okay. And the school has no say about this?
No.
No, this was,
They are an
Board, okay.
independent entity.
Okay,
The school
all right.
board has no
Okay.
oversight.
the other question I have is interventionists.
Cooperation.
We
With-
can
With
influence.
interventionists, they're
Should
working
be.
through, they're working during the school day. Right.
They're Goochland County Public Schools
Right.
staff.
If there's a child who has a problem with, let's say, math, you pull them out of school, or out of their classroom, and take them to the interventionist.
That's one model.
Okay.
Sometimes we push in.
Okay, but what happens to them learning the material that would have been taught when they were in there?
Well, mathematics is sequential. One school of thought is if you haven't learned basic multiplication, you can't advance to algebra. So if everybody else is moving to algebra and you don't have the basic skills to do that, you're not gaining anyway. Smart money is to try to build the skills in which you're deficient so that you have a better chance at gaining the subsequent skills.
But when would you do that where you don't miss the next stuff?
Well, we always assume that it means going in and pulling kids out and causing disruptions and all that good stuff. Sometimes interventionists can actually push in. And sometimes if you're doing it really, really well, you can advance kids who may not necessarily need the intervention if you're doing it the way it could be done.
I can say that I had to do second grade over. I guess I was assigned to an interventionist, and I was pulled completely out of my classroom. I didn't learn anything. We played stupid little games,
Without a doubt.
uneducational, and complete, like, that whole year, it was complete waste.
The whole field has moved more into a, that was more of a self-contained model. We've moved in more into an inclusive environment model. It's not done that way in most instances. Now that's not to say there won't ever be a scenario where you won't see an interventionist or specialist or, frankly, in our current landscape, a classroom teacher working one-on-one with a student. I'm not going to tell you you're not going to ever see that. You likely will. But by design, we don't take kids and put them isolated every single day from their peer groups so that they might fill deficiency gaps.
Dr. Dyer gave a perfect presentation to Mr. Lyle and myself. And can you speak to just a couple, I'm not going to want to call you out, but you know this so well, just a couple ideas of how those interventionists work and the models? You gave 2 or 3 that were just outstanding.
And Dr. Guy, before you start, let me say he did a brilliant job, and he has
Yeah.
converted me. So my devil's advocacy here is looking for the best solution, because it is dollars and cents driven.
It is.
And so I make no apologies for trying to find the best budgetary solution here. But Dr. Guy, if you can recreate your magic, no
To
pressure.
measure. No pressure. No
Mr.
pressure.
Chair, do you want me to speak from?
Yes.
Outside of happy to. Couple points is to Ms. Moses' question, if I may. We almost never pull students from literacy instruction for literacy intervention, and we almost never pull students from math instruction for math intervention.
Then when would you pull them?
Other times during the school day.
But what happens to those subjects?
Well, it could be an encore. It could be that they miss, part of an art class, part of a PE class. We have students that are with our interventionists. Instead of waiting 15 minutes after school to be picked up by mom or dad. So there's lots of flexibility during the day. But as a rule, exactly what you said is true. We don't want to reduce the amount of instruction. We want to add to it. So if their specific need is in math or is in literacy, we generally try not to pull them out during those times.
Just to give you another scenario, just like a teacher has reading stations where a group is pulled to the teacher, the others are working on independent work or different stations. They sometimes are pulled during that time, so they see their teacher and they also see an interventionist.
At the same time?
No. So they see the teacher, and instead of going to independent work where they don't have someone, they're sometimes pulled by an interventionist, and then the interventionist can work with them as well. So they're kind of getting a double dose of having direct instruction, but with a teacher.
And then the other thing I wanted to, Dr. Cromartie's point earlier about math support, and he's correct in that the demands of VLA right now mean, and I've presented this to the board, to our school board, that the students at Goochland Elementary School and Randolph Elementary School are currently not receiving support for numeracy deficits, because all of those resources are being pushed toward the literacy requirements of VLA. And as Dr. Cromartie stated, next year that will include 4th and 5th grade. And so at 2 of our 3 elementary schools, we're meeting the need for literacy support. We are not meeting the need for numeracy support. And that's going to be exacerbated next year with 2 additional grades demanding the literacy support. Byrd is the exception because Byrd is a Title I school. They have additional federal funding, and they have 2 reading specialists where the other schools have 1, and they also have a full-time math specialist. So their needs are addressed through additional funding streams, which causes some inequity, but that's by design. That's the school that qualifies for Title I because of free and reduced lunch population. And we've gone over that as well in terms of the staffing. So as Ms. Robinson said, there are lots of models in terms of intervention, but sometimes it's, as Ms. Worsing described, the interventionist or the specialist in the classroom with the classroom teacher. Sometimes it's pulling out small groups. Sometimes it's pulling students out in a one-on-one setting if they need intensive remediation. But those are all designed to be in addition to, not in place of. So we are not substituting teacher A for teacher B, where you get teacher A and you get teacher B. And that's how we make up deficits with students that are struggling. And so again, I've made the analogy before. I'd like a pool in my backyard. We don't have a pool in our backyard. We recognize we can't afford everything that we want. I would argue, and I have a specific role in the organization to advocate for our instructional program. I believe these interventionists are needed and will absolutely make a positive impact on a large number of students that need additional support.
And to add to that, Dr. Geyer, the interventionist line item that you saw in Tier 1 are for mathematics, to make sure that we've got, no? Yes.
Yes,
no,
they are.
Yes. I saw a no shake.
That's been.
No.
The no is in disbelief because that's always been.
I understand. I'm restating it given the conversation that has
Yes,
been
ma'am.
harped on about reading intervention. And the reason I'm saying this for the benefit of all is because we saw a dip in our math scores because we haven't been able to allocate additional supports in mathematics because it's been all hands on deck with Virginia Literacy Act. So we're seeing the need on the horizon, right? All of the factors are lining up to say that the moment is here.
And maybe we can put that on the list.
On the broader,
That is, the word math.
The word math would help. I think,
on the
for
broader
others.
scale, just, is it possible to extend the, like 80%, I'm with you guys, it's not acceptable. But can we extend the school day? I know that that's gonna shoot the budget.
Salary.
Yeah, salary, the budget,
But
all
there's
that.
also a
I'm
tipping
just
point at
trying
which
to-
point children can retain more, you know what I mean?
Right.
There's a breaking point. I don't have the data in front of me. I would look to Dr. Geyer or Dr. Cromartie, but you can't sit kids in a classroom for 10 hours a day and expect them to learn at the same rate as they did the first 3 hours of the day, right? So we have to think about that as well. We also still far outpace the state requirements for instructional hours.
Okay.
So we're still tracking well ahead of what's required of us to try to get the best quality education possible for Goochland students.
Well, it's paying off.
We'd like to see it pay off some more.
Let me ask this, and it doesn't have anything to do with interventionists. Well, sort of does if you talk about your parents. Do the kids have homework? Do they do homework?
So I'm not a classroom teacher. I don't have that answer.
Yeah, students have homework.
Okay, do they have their books? Or just worksheets or what? Are things online, or are they?
It's a combination.
Uh-huh. Okay, but they actually are expected to do the homework. It's not just, okay, if you feel like it, do this. Tonight, they're expected to do it and turn it in?
Yeah, yes, it varies. Looks different for a kindergartner than it does as a 12th grader. It looks different for a fine arts class than it does for calculus. So it's,
Sure.
it's hard to.
Yeah, you aren't gonna
yes,
take
in
a kill
general,
home,
yes.
but, I mean, math, science, things like that, they're expected to do work at home.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Can I make one more point about the interventions, just because I just want to be really clear while we have everybody in the room. We specifically, as we identified support specialists in the division, we really identified special education teachers, which obviously are teachers that work specifically with students who qualify for that service. And then outside of that, we have math specialists, reading specialists, and interventionists. Bird has the only math specialist in the division. We have a reading specialist at each of our 3 elementary schools, 2 at Bird, 1 at the middle school. And we asked our principals, if we were to receive funding to provide additional support to students, would you prefer that we hire 3 math specialists, 3 reading specialists, or 3 academic interventionists? They unanimously said interventionists because math need is the greatest need, but those positions allow the greatest flexibility to support growing needs. To Ms. Allen's point about, we know what our needs are today, they may shift in the future, but they don't want to pigeonhole themselves into more reading specialists or math specialists, and then really not have the folks to support really either or, which we know those are the two core areas that really require the most support. So again, just to be clear, I would, right now we call them academic interventionists. I would hesitate if it's not a math specialist or a reading specialist, which implies certain qualifications for those positions. I would stay with a broader term that allows more flexibility for the kinds of needs that they serve.
I think this has been very informative. Bottom line, you all need to make a decision, and it seems to me a good case is made for the valuableness of these positions. So we will certainly take that into consideration as we consider the budget and how much we can allocate in addition to what we already have.
Do you personally, or are you privy to personally say, I'm most interested in classroom teachers and low class sizes, or do you just look at the dollar amount and, as Mr. Botters, or Mr. Spoonhour, excuse me, either one, I'm not sure, here's the money, you do with what you feel is important? I mean, do you have a personal investment in, oh, I know you do.
So are we going
Yeah,
to say, we would like for you to spend this money thusly?
Yes.
I don't think we have.
We haven't done it in the past.
We haven't done
I mean,
that. I mean,
Yeah, I
the
just-
point.
Other than category.
Right, we've done
Yeah.
categorically education, you know, but not, that's you guys.
So-
Do you want us, I don't
Me
think you want us
personally,
to.
No, I just wondered if you had
Would be glad
personal.
to.
Well, I just think this information, this discussion today has been very beneficial.
I'd like to hear Mr. Christie's.
Yeah, I mean, personally for me, it would be, you guys give us a number that you want, and if it exceeds what we were expecting, then just, something like this, like, well, the reason we need more is because we would like this, 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 and this, and then we can negotiate that way. But no, I don't see a need for us to be so involved with your guys' line items.
Yeah, I do, and because if it's something that you want a vested interest in, what, as a representative and hearing from my constituents, the agricultural teacher is a very important position for them, and I think because we live in a rural county, and so we need to keep in mind that our taxpayers want certain things for their students, given different options, just like we see the benefit of CTE and going into a career path like that. We need to be able to offer that path for those that are interested in agriculture. And because there's definitely different things. I know we've spent majority of our time on the interventionists, but I think the reason why that was one thing for me to kind of bring down a little bit is because there are definitely other things, and I think that the community they've taken the time to come up and speak at our school board meetings about wanting a band director, that the program has grown from 28 to 70 some students, and not to say we don't have students that's something that's where they feel they want to go in their career path. So I just think those are things that I'd like to bring up because that's what my constituents have brought to me, and those are important things too. Not to say that reading isn't important. We spend a lot of money in the United States per student, and we are not ranked the highest in the world right now. So throwing money at a problem sometimes, or just is not always going to meet the need. I know 100%. We want 100% of our students to read. I don't think there's anybody that would say otherwise. But there's a lot of needs on here, and our taxpayers all have different ideas of where they would want, they're advocating for their children. So I feel led that I should say agricultural teacher needs to be considered, and a band position.
I'll add the ESL along with that because, well, and if you can't, and I know it's a different category, but, and back to Mr. Lyle and the many conversations we've had, if you can't read and if you can't comprehend, many people can read, not everybody can comprehend. If you can't, then you can't do math. You can't do a book report. I mean, you can't write. You have to have those skills. And reading isn't just reading. There's grammar. There's, it just goes on and on that comes under that umbrella. And to me, that's just crucial. So as a school board member, I applaud people with the financial ability. But I came on board to serve not only my community, but to serve the students who can't speak for themselves. And mine is all teachers, and getting teachers and whatever is needed in the schools to support their growth and to keep our class sizes down.
Mr. Chairman, I guess categorically, I do have tendency, and I won't apologize for getting into the weeds, but my priority would be investing in faculty, the people. I don't care what the building is, it's the teacher inside that building that I would like to see. And I believe I'm seeing this school board emphasize. Get great teachers, not good, get great teachers, and then keep them. And so as we're doing categorical allocations, I will absolutely be skewing towards what are we doing to get great teachers and keep them. And so that's.
I love that, Mr. Lyle. I don't know if you gentlemen heard the news from a couple of weeks ago, but our neighbor to the east, Henrico County Public Schools, is now giving their teachers, all employees, a 6% pay raise. So when you say get great teachers,
And keep them.
the adjustment that we made last year is now gone. Right? That adjustment would, right? So Henrico is now outpacing us, and it is a challenging, and I hope, I agree with Ms. Robinson. We work really hard to talk about culture, to talk about small classroom sizes, talk about autonomy, talk about all the benefits of being an educator in Goochland. But I bought eggs last night at $6.49 a dozen, and they weren't even like the good eggs. They were like the cheap eggs. So teachers have the same fiscal realities that everyone else has, and getting great teachers comes with an ever-increasing premium as we try to compete with Henrico and Chesterfield and Louisa and Hanover.
I didn't see it on this list.
That's because that budget came with an understanding that we were gonna have a 3%, and we
Right.
ran with that, and Henrico's news came out, I think, about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, Henrico, we can try to compete, but we never
I'm
can
sharing
stay
data.
there.
We
They
are
also
a
lowered-
They
mandate
raise taxes.
competitor.
Oh, wait,
It lowered,
didn't we raise taxes?
No,
No.
they didn't.
Yeah.
No.
We didn't
we
raise the
dropped-
rate.
Oh, no, we didn't raise the rate.
We rate your bill
Bumped up
increased.
yeah, never mind.
We didn't, we did not do that.
That's a state formula, right?
Henrico actually lowered their tax rate a couple of pennies, but they raised the data center rate to a point that actually paid for more than the lowering of the tax rate.
And they got a meals tax.
Which,
Yeah, so,
just so you all know, which is why economic development is important for Goochland County. Because you can see the benefit in Henrico.
every tax
A couple of
increase we
data
make
centers
falls
will
on the
add,
parents too, so.
May I
Okay.
propose
Yes.
just something it'll take, I timed it when I read it, and it'll probably take 1.5 minutes. 1 minute and 32 seconds.
At 2 minutes.
This is,
And by the way, Mr. Waters had to drop out, but Mr. Spoonhour's still on.
this is just something that, I found and wanted to share. And it's kind of, our superintendent was, director of his English department. And so I think he will appreciate this is not what we want. As I reflect on the recent meetings between the school board and the Board of Supervisors, where we requested additional budget support for Goochland County schools, I'm reminded of the critical importance of investing in education of our children. The event was a pivotal moment in our efforts to ensure that our schools are equipped with the necessary resources to continue providing excellence in education. Initially, I felt a sense of urgency and responsibility as Dr. Cromartie presented our case to the Board of Supervisors. I was acutely aware of the impact that your decision would have on the future of our students and the community at large. Our initial reaction was to emphasize the importance of providing our schools with the necessary funding to maintain the high standards of education that we have established. We were determined to convey the message that our students' success is directly tied to the resources we provide them, and that any reduction in funding would have far-reaching consequences. As I reflect on that experience, I am struck by the lessons we have learned about the impact of our efforts. Despite the challenges we face, our students are thriving, learning across the curriculum, excelling academically in sports, and becoming exemplary citizens. This is a testament to the dedication of our teachers, staff, and administrators who work tirelessly to implement our core values of excellence, creativity, courage, honor, and optimism. These values are not just words on a page, they are guiding principles that shape our approach to education and to inform every decision that we make. The key insight I gained from this experience is that our focus on providing a well-rounded education is yielding tangible results. By prioritizing the intellectual, personal, social, and career preparation and the needs of all students, we are setting them up for success in all aspects of life. This is not just about academic achievement. It is about cultivating thoughtful, empathetic, and engaged citizens who will make a positive impact in their communities. As we move forward, we are committed to applying the lessons we have learned to continue providing the best educational experience possible for our students. This means staying focused on our core values, being responsive to the evolving needs of our students, and advocating for the resources necessary to support their successes. It also means continuing to build strong relationships with our community partners, including the Board of Supervisors, to ensure that we are working together to create a brighter future for all. In conclusion, the experience of requesting additional budget support from the Board of Supervisors was a powerful reminder of the critical role that education plays in shaping the lives of our students and the future of our community. As educators, we have a sacred responsibility to provide our students with the tools, resources, and support they need to succeed. I am proud of the progress we have made, and I am committed to continuing our efforts to provide a world-class education that prepares our students for success in all aspects of life. Gentlemen, I did not write that. AI wrote that. We don't want that in our high school. We don't want students doing papers like that, do we, Don? But we need teachers, and teachers who have time and are invested in seeing that students are engaged, they have one-on-one experiences, they learn grammar, they learn the skills in writing, and don't put out papers like this, which is a beautiful piece of work, when I only put in my reflection writer 13 comments, and that's what it's been. Pretty impressive. And I admire the teachers who are, and we've done this with Blue Ridge Governor's School, how kids have tried to insert different things from AI to make, it perform to the best. But we need teachers in the classroom who are the best, who will make sure that these kind of papers aren't written, even though it was good. Thank you.
Okay. Madam Chairman, anything else for the good of the cause?
Not for me. Anyone here?
All right, so we need to officially adjourn. I guess perhaps you do too?
I need to officially adjourn until 5:30. The school board officially adjourns till 5:30.
Today, you have a school board meeting?
Yes.
Oh. All right, all y'all in favor of that? And we need to adjourn to Tuesday, April 1st, 2025. Regular meeting at 6 p.m., afternoon meeting to be determined for the budget, public hearings, board meeting, room 250, county administration. And Tuesday, April 15th, 2025, in the afternoon to be determined, regular meeting at 6 p.m. where the board meeting room here in 250 at county administration building.
We have town halls too, don't we?
We do have town halls, which previously have been
We're not adjourning to that. That's-
made public. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Good job.
Learned a lot. I appreciate